Hello, everyone. Today's topic is meter. If you're reading any theory texts or looking around on the web, you may also see indications for time signature or meter signature. And signature, those terms are pretty much interchangeable. Okay, we oftentimes in the US use time signature instead of the word meter. In Europe, they use the word meter a lot more. So it's either or in that case. We have two types of meter that kind of break everything into these two categories for us: simple and compound. So in terms of each of these meters, let's look at the time signatures that we have in here, and we can kind of break apart how they are similar and different. So simple meters, examples would be 2/4, 2/2, which is cut time, right? 3/4, 3/2 would be a similar one. 4/4, 4/2, anything like these, basically. In a simple meter, what you have, and let's just look at the time signatures individually here. So the top number of a time signature gives you the number of beats in a measure. The bottom of the time signature actually gives you the quality of the beat type. Okay, so in this case, it is the half note. That 2 on the bottom means half note. If you see a time signature, meter signature, that has a 2 or a 4 on the bottom, okay, with very few exceptions, and I can really only think of one at the moment, that is going to indicate a simple meter, meaning this bottom note is divisible by 2, okay, meaning that your subdivision, or the notes that can kind of break down into smaller pieces on the bottom, are all going to be in pairs of 2. So a half note, for example, can accommodate 2/4, and that can also be broken into 2/8 notes, which can probably then be broken into 16ths, etc. Right? So you have this sort of binary division of the beat. That indicates a simple meter. Okay? Regardless of what the number is on the top. So let's look at compound for a minute. Compound meters would be 3/8, 6/8, 9/8, 12/8. Okay, if we use the same logic that we just had with our simple meters, this top number is the number of beats in a measure. The bottom number is going to be the quality of the beat, but now we're starting to run into a little bit of a problem, because in compound meters, looking just at the at the numbers that we have here, they're obviously much larger than the simple meters. Compound meters are generally grouped in threes. So, for example, 12/8, a given measure of 12/8 is going to have 12/8 notes, but they are all beamed. That's what we call these lines across here. They're all beamed in groups of threes. Okay, so we could count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, but most commonly what we do is we count them 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and up. Okay, and so that gives us another meaning to this meter, okay, to this time signature. So for 12/8, we don't actually count, I mean, we do count 12/8 notes if we're taking the literal meaning, but because traditionally we don't have that binary subdivision, we actually have a macro beat that groups each one of these kind of small quantity subdivisions into threes. That gives us a second kind of compound meaning to this meter. Okay, so that's where the compound part comes from. The issues with these, we're going to be looking at writing them and identifying meters, and then potentially even recognizing them aurally. And so when you're identifying a meter, obviously we're going to identify simple or compound, but then we have a little bit more detail that we can even add to this, which would be duple, triple, or quadruple. Okay. And in a duple meter, now we're thinking, if simple meter and compound meter, if those designations really focus on what's the bottom number here, duple, triple, and quadruple are really focusing on the top number. Okay, so duple means you're going to have an overall beat pattern of 2. Okay, triple, so this is going to be 2 4, 2 2. It's also going to be 6 8. Okay, and so and anything else that would have an overall beat pattern of 2. Triple, regardless of the simple or compound, the triple designation would be 3 4. 3 2, because that's often conducted in 3 9 8. Notice I'm not putting 3 8 in here. 3 8 is kind of an oddball. Usually 3 8 is conducted in 1. If it's slow enough, you could include 3 8. Right? It can fall into that category. It's not common. Quadruple is going to be 4 4, 4 2. The 12 8 example that we gave. Right? Those are all quadruple meters. Okay. I said there was one exception to our simple rule earlier, and that is 6 4. Okay, there's not a lot of pieces I can think of in 6 4. When you see it, and I'm mostly thinking choral works actually, so if you're an instrumentalist, you might never come across this. In terms of 6 4, it's sort of, you can think of 6 4 like an overinflated 6 8. Okay, we actually have 2 big beats, but they are 2 big beats that are 3 quarter notes apiece. So we're taking 6 8, which would normally be 3 and 3, two big eighth note groups, and we're just making them quarters, right? But we're thinking of them grouped as 3s. Okay, so that one's a little bit confusing, but that's most commonly when you see 6 4, what you're going to get. Now, again, this kind of takes care of what we have written. What about aural identification? So if you're listening to a piece of music, so let's just say, you're listening to an album, or, I don't know if anybody listens to the radio anymore, but, Apple Radio, whatever. And you come across a piece of music you maybe don't know, or even a piece that you do know, but you don't have the music in front of you, and you're just tapping out the meter and the rhythm. What I would recommend is trying to conduct, if you can, because that will kind of give you a sense of where the beat pattern is and where the strong beats fall, and then you'll know if this is duple, triple, quadruple. So basic conducting patterns for duple would be down and then back up, triple, down, out, and you're doing this with your right hand, so that's why that's out, and then back up, quadruple, down, in, out, up. Now, when you're doing this, it's pretty easy to identify 3s. Okay, 3s are pretty unique. They sound a little bit like a waltz. If you hear something that's duple versus something that's quadruple, you may not be able to tell the difference between the two. That's okay. I don't think most people can, unless there's some very, very obvious thing telling you one way or the other. Duple meter, the strongest beat is the downbeat, and then obviously the second beat is weaker. Triple meter, first beat is also the strongest, and then out and up are weaker, although the upbeat seems like it might be a little stronger than the second beat. Quadruple, first beat is strongest, in is pretty weak. Third beat is also strong, although not as strong as number 1, and then back up is weaker. So the only way to really tell the difference between duple and quadruple would be that third beat. If you could feel somehow that every other strong pulse is not quite as strong as the pulses in between, then you have quadruple meter versus duple. But again, it's not something that's very, very easy to determine. So other things that we're going to talk about in this unit, tempo, and we're going to learn a ton of tempo words that you're probably already familiar with. The one that is my pet peeve is allegro. Everybody thinks allegro means fast. It does not. Allegro just means happy. So in your own playing, please don't play too fast. It just means happy. We're going to talk a little bit more about rhythm and beaming, okay? We talked about this a little bit with our pitch notation with our stems. In a similar way, stems are going to have direction here, whether you go up or down, in relation to your note head. The beam is actually what we are going to be most concerned with because, of course, that's going to delineate our beats, right? So whether something is simple or compound and whether it is duple, triple, or quadruple. Rests are going to be, counted similarly to our actual notes. The only difference is that we can't really beam rests. So just, keep that in mind. We haven't really talked about dots yet. Remember that when you add a dot to a note, it adds half the value of that note. So in this case, you're looking at 1.5 beats, right? As opposed to just the one for the quarter. Syncopation is something that we're going to cover, and that's most commonly heard when you have a beat that you expect to be strong that is somehow weakened because it is maybe shorter in length, and then another beat that is made stronger because of an agogic accent, meaning a lengthened note or an unexpected accent there because of that note length, and then your expectation of these has been shifted. So syncopation is all about expectation. We'll talk about crucis and anacrucis. So looking at our conducting patterns again, the crucis is always the downbeat. That is the cross through the horizontal beat or horizontal music, right, is the downbeat. Anacrucis is the upbeat. Okay, if we're being very technical, the beats in between are called the metacrucis, but that's not a term people really throw around very, very frequently. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is hemiola. Hemiola is when you have a 2 against 3. So imagine pairing that against that, okay, at the same time. That's when we get a hemiola effect. This unit, more than the last unit, has just a lot of vocabulary. So as you're going through the exercises, I would encourage you to start using some of the vocabulary, especially if you're not used to using it, and especially when it comes to simple versus compound, duple, triple, and quadruple, and then some of the tempo words, just so that it becomes second nature, and then you can start applying it to your own practice.